John chapter 11. We will be concluding today our look at John's book of signs. This has been an incredible journey as we progress through the Gospel of John and we behold the various signs that attest to the deity, the majesty of our Lord Jesus Christ. Imagine a thick fog setting in as you make your way home from a walk. The fog is so dense it swallows everything around you. It's a route you've taken countless times, but now you can't see the path. You can't see the landmarks. You can't even see your own feet. With each step comes the sense of uncertainty. Silence sets in, and it's heavy. You feel alone and trapped. If you were to call out, your voice would just disappear into the gray without an echo. Fear begins to set in, not just because your path is now unknown, but because you feel as though you're lost with no direction, no one to guide you along the path. You long for a simple break in the fog, a familiar voice, a hand maybe to lead you out, but all you feel is helpless, hopeless, maybe even confused. A comparable experience to this could be a rainfall that's so heavy, particularly in the summertime as we approach the summer. Rainfall gets so heavy, it pours on our windshield and our windshield wipers can't keep up. We've got to slow to a crawl while we wait for the rain to pass. The experience, regardless of which one you prefer, illustrates how sorrow can feel at moments in our lives when it rolls in, seemingly out of nowhere, unexpected. The pain of sorrow leaves us feeling alone and helpless. It fogs our vision. It obscures our surroundings. It makes us feel lost and unable to connect with those around us. Sorrow leaves us feeling adrift and without purpose. It weighs heavy and it burdens our hearts. It may seem as if there is no sign of it ever going away. And it creates this sense of feeling trapped in sorrow, trapped in pain that the sorrow brings with no way out. And even as Christians, we can experience times when it feels deep sorrow engulfs us, when we are utterly alone and helpless, when we question whether anyone can truly understand our pain or whether we can ever find relief. No one understands the pain that I'm in. No one genuinely cares about what it is that I'm going through. I don't know how I'll ever find the strength to get past this, the strength to move on. Maybe you come today and you feel as though the thick fog of sorrow has set over your life. You grieve the loss of someone you love, and it's difficult to focus on anything but the memory of that person that is no longer with you. You face profound depression or anxiety. You're overwhelmed by the demands of life, and you constantly wrestle with the feeling that you are a failure. You have unresolved grief, unresolved anger from past hurt. It's buried deep inside, and it rears itself up whenever you think you've gotten over it. The good news for us today is that we have a Savior in the person of Jesus Christ, who knows our pain, who meets us where we are, and who provides us the relief that we need. Hebrews chapter 4, the writer of Hebrews says it plainly, "For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who is in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need." And that is my charge to you today, to all of us here. Let us draw near to the throne. If you find yourself coming into this place amidst grief, amidst profound depression, anxiety, hurts, unresolved anger, distress, let us draw near to the throne of grace. Let us tune our hearts to receive God's precious word in these verses, and let us find the grace that we need to help us in our time of sorrow. Now, up to this point in our survey of John's Gospel, we have seen, I'm counting here, 6 total signs. We're looking at the 7th. I have to count because there's actually a debate over how many there should be. We have seen 6 total signs in our survey of John's Gospel here. And remember, these signs are public displays of Jesus' power in his earthly ministry that attest to his deity. They attest to the fact that he is the Son of God, that he is the Messiah of Israel, and that he is worthy to be worshipped. We have seen Jesus' power over the elements when he turned water into wine at the wedding at Cana. We have seen Jesus' authority over the temple when he cleared the Jerusalem temple at Passover. We have seen Jesus' power over disease when he healed the Jewish official's son. His power over disabilities when he healed the lame man. His power to provide for the material needs of his people in feeding the 5,000. And we have seen his power to create, yes, recreate a new set of eyes with the healing of the blind man. That surveys roughly John chapter 2 all the way through John chapter 9. And now we return to the climactic end of John's book of signs. He saves the best for last, a sign revealing Jesus' power over death itself with the raising of Lazarus. John chapter 11, verses 1 through 44 is our focus for this sign. Lazarus, you'll remember from last time, is a friend of Jesus, struck ill and died. And he, up to this point, has been dead for 4 days. Jesus and his disciples journey to Bethany to meet Martha and Mary, his sisters, and close friends of Jesus. Jesus meets Martha, as we ended last time, in her moment of grieving. She approaches Jesus and she says, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask from God, God will do it." She says, "I have the faith, I have the confidence, Jesus, that if you were here, you could have healed my brother. I know that you have the power over disease, and I know that I could have seen that power had you been here." It is a declaration of her faith, recognizing who Jesus is. "But even now, I know in this moment, at this time, I don't know how you're going to do it, but I know that you can intervene. And I know that God is with you. And Jesus, you'll recall in verse 25, says, I am the resurrection and the life. I hold the power to conquer death. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. For those who believe in me, Jesus says, death shall be no more. I believe that you are the Christ, she then says in response, the Son of God, who is coming into the world. And now we pick up in verse 28. When she had said this, that is Martha, she went and called her sister Mary. Remember, Mary was back in the home, grieving in private. You had this image of two sisters, two different personalities, an introvert and an extrovert. And the extrovert needed to come to Jesus, needed to talk it out. And so she came to Jesus. That was Martha, and had that conversation. But Mary stayed behind in the home in order to grieve quietly within herself, in the home, in private. But Martha now comes to Mary in private and says, the teacher is here and calling for you. Martha maintains some level of sensitivity to her sister's grieving in going to her in private, not wanting to make a scene, honoring the fact that she needs to grieve alone. The teacher is calling for you. That's a common title in John's Gospel to refer to Jesus. Here we could actually say it harkens back to verse 25, where Jesus really presented some new theology about the resurrection. I am the resurrection and the life. And if you want to participate in that resurrection, that future time at which the saints will be glorified, you must believe in me. That was new data, new information that he had just taught Martha. Well, that teacher now seeks out Mary. And verse 29, Mary, when she heard it, notice, she rose quickly and went to him. This is not a woman who is trapped in her sorrow. This is not someone who is allowing her grieving to overwhelm her, to conquer her senses. Up to this point, she has, yes, she's wanted to be left alone. But at the first word of Jesus' arrival, at the first word that Jesus wants to see her, she yearns to be in his presence. And she stops everything that she is doing, all of the grieving that she is engaged in, and she rushes to meet her Lord. Verse 30, now Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who were with her in the house, consoling her, saw Mary rise quickly and go out, they followed her, supposing that she was going to the tomb to weep there. Friends and visitors of the community were consoling her in this time of mourning. They were visiting her in her home. In Jewish custom, there is a period, a mourning period, known as Shiva. It's a 7-day mourning period that follows burial. This is a modern custom. It's not clear whether it was a custom that was followed at this time, though it very well could have been. But during a Shiva, those who are in mourning will sit on the floor or in some low seating position. They will not engage in the various activities that they have to live. Think of it almost as a Sabbath. They will not engage in bathing. They will not engage in working. They will not even study Torah as they would otherwise be expected to do. And during this time of mourning, this sort of extended Sabbath time where they grieve their loved one. Friends and visitors would come, would visit in the home, would provide comfort, and often bring them food. We practice this sometimes today. Whenever somebody is grieving, we might meet them. We might bring food to them, a meal train you might hear of before. We might send cards their way, and all of the various things that we do in order to console them during their time of grieving. That's the state that Mary was in, and that explains this crowd that is with her. They are there to do their duty in consoling someone in the community who has lost someone she loved. And when she gets up to go to the tomb, they just assume that she's doing exactly what Jews would do in a time of grieving. That is, they would go to the tomb in order to grieve in that location. It was custom for Jews to visit the grave of the deceased in their mourning. And they just thought that's exactly what she's doing here, so let us follow her. And unbeknown to them, they are about to become a captive audience for what is about to take place. Verse 32. And when Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet, saying to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Does it sound familiar? It's exactly the same profession that Martha made at first sight of Jesus. And again, I would contend that this is not Mary or Martha calling Jesus out, chiding him, why weren't you here to prevent this? I think instead it is a declaration of their faith. Lord, I know that you possess power over disease, and I know that if you had been here, my brother would not have died. In other words, my brother's death is not a stumbling block to my faith. I still believe in who you are and what you can accomplish. Notice it says she fell at his feet. I don't believe that's by accident. Being at Jesus' feet was actually a very common place that Mary found herself. And she was often at the feet of Jesus in a spirit of worship. If you were to flip back to Luke chapter 10, verse 39, you would see that she sat at Jesus' feet in order to listen to his teaching. If you were to flip ahead from John 11 to John chapter 12, verse 3, you would see she is at Jesus' feet wiping ointment on his feet. In that moment, she pours ointment over his head and then wipes it on his feet. And so it is very common for Mary to find herself in this position. It's a place of solemnity for her. It's a place of solitude for her. She finds great comfort and safety to be at Jesus' feet. It's exactly the location she needs to be in this time of grieving. And here we see, firstly, that in our moments of sorrow, in our moments of grief, Jesus finds us. Jesus finds us in our moments of grief. If you come today with sorrow in your hearts, weighed heavy, recognize that Jesus, even now, today, right at this moment, by virtue of us reading his word, Jesus finds you in this moment here now. He finds you in your time of grieving. One man describes his experience stepping into a funeral home where he would get one last look at his son. It's pretty moving. He says, I followed the owner into a large room where he soon left me alone. I slowly made my way across a thick rug on the floor to a table on the far side of the room. and upon the table was a white casket. I stood there for what felt like an endless eternity before I finally summoned enough courage to look at the lifeless body of my son. At that sight, my world collapsed. I would have given up all of my athletic awards and my academic achievements. I would have given up the prestigious executive training program I had with one of the largest international oil companies. I would have given everything. For the first time in my life, I had come to a hurdle that I could not clear, and my world collapsed. And he's describing the loss of his son. His loss paints a vivid picture of inner turmoil. His pain felt so overwhelming that none of the good pleasures of this world meant anything to him. No one could understand the depth of what he was feeling, and no one could provide the comfort his soul was craving for. He was alone and isolated. And this helps us understand how Mary was feeling in this moment. She had lost her brother. Her world collapsed, and she was so overwhelmed with grief that initially she preferred to be alone. Eventually, she knew there was only one place she could find rest for her weary heart, and that was at the feet of Jesus. And so we continue in verse 33. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in his spirit and greatly troubled. And he said, "Where have you laid him?" And they said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus wept. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, Could not he who opens the eyes of the blind man also have kept this man from dying? Now hone in on verse 33, these expressions. He was deeply moved in his spirit and greatly troubled. It's somewhat softened in our English translations. Literally in the Greek, he is angered. He is agitated. He is indignant. And of course, there's a lot of intrigue amongst Bible interpreters as to what would make Jesus angry in this moment. What's going on? Some have suggested he was angry at the unbelief of those who were present. Why do you mourn as if you have no reason to hope in what God can do in this moment? It's a good suggestion. The only other time we see Jesus weeping, it's because of unbelief, the disbelief of Jerusalem in Luke chapter 19, verse 41. Others have said maybe he's just angry at the situation. He's angry at death. The fact that death happens, the effect that death has on this world and on his friend Lazarus specifically. Look at the destruction death causes for my friends, for those whom I love. And this would explain verse 36. See how he loved Lazarus. Still others say he's angry at Satan, because in this moment, Satan, the deceiver, demonstrates his power. He brought death into the world, Satan did, through his temptation. And even now, in this moment, he is deceiving the people, just as he deceived Eve. He is deceiving the people into thinking that there is no hope. Satan, it's because of you that death is so permanent a fixture in our world. And it is because of you that these people mourn as if there is no hope. Now, this is an intriguing question. Which option is there here? It's an intriguing question for us. But I think it distracts us from the ultimate point. And that is this: Jesus, the Son of God, the sovereign, all-knowing, and all-powerful Son of God, enters into this moment of grief, this moment of sorrow. And what does he do? He takes that grief on himself. He enters in and he takes the burden, the weight of that grief, the grief of his people on himself. Jesus, we see, empathizes with our sorrow. He is angered. His anger drives him to weep. Verse 35. Whatever the specific object of that anger might be, whatever the specific motivator it might be that really provokes Jesus to weep in this moment, I bet you the emotions are so complex. There could be multiple things at any one time that just leads him. It's a sign of his humanity here that he would be led in this moment to weep. But whatever the case is, we see his willingness to meet Mary, Martha, and all of the people present in this moment of sorrow and to bear that burden. He empathizes with our sorrow. In our moments of vulnerability, knowing that someone cares can make a significant difference in our ability to cope with the pain that we have. One individual explains that when his first child died, he felt intensely lonely and defeated, with nothing in his life seeming to matter. His neighbor, sensing the profound loss, came to this man and put his hand on his shoulder. And his neighbor said, "I can't really express what I want to say. The sympathy I have for you in my heart. All I can say is that I'm sorry. And I want you to know that if you need anything at all, you can come to me. What's mine is yours." And such a simple act can be incredibly meaningful and comforting to someone who's experiencing a loss. Perhaps you can attest to that reality. The neighbor didn't try to minimize this man's loss. He acknowledged the depth of his sorrow. He expressed a desire simply to be present with him in that moment of grief, by his side, and to offer to share his resources if it is needed. And here, Jesus demonstrates that he is that empathetic ear in our moments of grief as well. He knows the depths of our sorrow. We know this because we believe he's omniscient. But we also know this because of what we read in Hebrews chapter 4. He knows our sorrow because he has experienced it himself. He knows it not just in a factual sense. He didn't just read a textbook on human sorrow. He has lived it himself. And our grieving is his grieving. In these moments of pain, of suffering, he offers his presence, his tears, and his love for our comfort. Well, in verse 38, Jesus, again deeply moved, that same word there, troubled, angered in his heart, he came to the tomb. It was a cave and a stone lay against it. It was common Jewish custom to bury the dead in caves, usually cut into limestone. The stone was the stone used to seal the cave. Could have been either a square block or a round stone. Oftentimes we see the portrayal of a round stone. Round stones would have been for those who could afford it. It was more expensive. These people did come from means, Lazarus, Mary, and Martha. They were affluent, so it is possible it was a round stone that was blocking it. But in verse 39, Jesus says, "Take away the stone," which is actually quite controversial. Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, Lord, by this time there will be an odor, for he has been dead 4 days. You have the King James that says he stinketh. But in verse 40, Jesus said to her, Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? After 4 days, post-mortem changes would have started. We acknowledged that last time. Martha was evidently familiar with that. It was also 1 day, 4 days, it was 1 day after the soul was believed to have permanently left the body. Remember last week we acknowledged that in Jewish superstition, it was believed that the soul would hover around the body for 3 days before finally moving on. And so Jesus' command here is a test of the people's faith. To take away the stone would risk defilement. But in order for Jesus to fulfill his work, in order for the people to see the glory of God, obedience was required. So they took away the stone, and Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. Notice, you have heard me. You have already heard me. Father, I thank you that you have already answered my prayer concerning my friend Lazarus, concerning my friends Mary and Martha, concerning my disciples and the people here before me, and perhaps even in his mind concerning my disciples here, April 27th, 2025, at Refuge Bible Fellowship. Father, I thank you for that you have already heard my prayer concerning them. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this on account of the people standing around, that they may believe that you sent me. I do not acknowledge, Jesus says, that there is a time in which you would never hear me. Perish the thought. But these people before me must know plainly that you, Father, have sent me. So let me thank you, out in the open, audibly, for doing what I know you always do. Verse 43, and when he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out! And that expression, cried out with a loud voice, it's interesting. It's a relatively rare verb in the New Testament. If you trace it out, it occurs in very specific instances in John's Gospel. When Jesus returns to Jerusalem, which will actually take place shortly after this moment, he will return to Jerusalem in what we call a triumphal entry. And the people of Israel will cry out, that's the verb, Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Tragically, only a week later, those same people who cried out that will be heard crying out, away with him! Crucify him! Not this man, but Barabbas. We have no king but Caesar. Crucify him. It's quite a turn of events. The Jews will soon cry out with a loud voice in an attempt to subject Jesus to death. Here, in this moment, Jesus cries out with a loud voice, declaring his authority over death itself. Verse 44, the man who had died came out. Interesting that he refers to Lazarus this way, the man who had died. I think he wants to be crystal clear as to what has just happened. He wants to eliminate any possibility that people might say this is nothing but a magic trick. The man who had died, Lazarus, him, came out of the tomb. His hands and feet were bound with linen straps, and his face wrapped with a cloth. Again, no trick. We know it's no trick because he's still wearing the burial garb. And Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." He was seen after death by those who were present. No misdirect. It was indeed Lazarus in the flesh. Contrast this with how John has actually described the miracles of Jesus up to this point. He tends to be rather kind of beating around the bush. He doesn't get very direct. But here, he is extremely direct. This man, Lazarus, was dead. He was a lifeless corpse for 4 days. But at Jesus' word, he was alive. He was seen moving with his grave clothes still on. And here we see, finally, that in our moment of sorrow, Jesus conquers it. Jesus crushes it. Jesus stands at the tomb here face to face with human sorrow. And he does not turn away. Instead, he weeps. He enters into the pain of those he loves, but then he shows that sorrow does not have the final word. With a loud voice, he calls Lazarus from the grave. He conquers sorrow with his life-giving word and power. As I bring this to a close, I want to share with you the story of Horatio Spafford. Perhaps some of you have heard this story before, but it is fitting for what we have just read. Horatio Spafford was a successful lawyer and businessman in Chicago and a devout Christian. There was a season in his life where he faced one tragedy after another, and it was just a very small amount of time. First, his only son died from scarlet fever at just 4 years old. Then, in 1871, the Great Chicago Fire engulfed the city of Chicago, and it destroyed a large portion of his real estate holdings. 2 years later, he sent his wife and 4 daughters on a trip to Europe, hoping to find some respite. He stayed behind to finalize some business and was hoping to meet up with them later. But the ship that his family was on collided with another ship and sank in the Atlantic. Only his wife survived. She sent him this chilling telegram that said, "Saved alone." Spafford immediately booked passage to join his grieving wife. As his ship crossed the Atlantic, the captain informed him that they were passing over the place where the ship carrying his family had sunk, the place where his 4 daughters had drowned, the place, if you will, of their burial. Naturally, he found it hard to sleep that night. But there in that moment, in the darkest valley of his life, he found the strength to write these words: "When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well. It is well with my soul. How can a man write such words in the midst of such unimaginable sorrow? Because like Mary and Martha, he trusted in Jesus, and his faith echoed a hope rooted in Christ's power to overcome death. He saw vividly what we see here today in our look at the tomb of Lazarus, that in our moment of grief, Jesus overcomes our sorrow by his unsurpassed power. And he has the power not just to feel our sorrow, but to transform it for his glory. It is well. It is not my defeats. Today, beloved, you may be carrying sorrow in your heart, griefs, disappointments, losses that feel heavy. But hear the good news. Jesus still stands at the tomb. He still weeps with you. And he still speaks life. He is the resurrection and the life. And in him, even when sorrows roll like sea billows, it can be well with your soul. It is my prayer that you can say that this day. Let's pray.